Welcome everyone to Driving and Dragons. I'm Daniel and I have a question for you. What do Sons of Anarchy, The Lion King, The Northman, and Great Expectations all have in common? Well, I'll answer that in a moment, because the crossroads upon which the 2010s 1% biker drama, the classic Disney animated film, the Viking adventure epic, and the 19th century Charles Dickens novel meet is a lesson in the first of the 7 keys to effective TTRPG design. What is that key? Be well read. Before we get clicking along, remember that you too can be well read by picking up a copy of Corvid Codex Volume 1, the latest and greatest in the world of TTRPG-inspired pulp fiction. It's available on Lulu in both paperback and ebook, so there is a copy for every budget and stories for every taste. While you are here, hit the like button and share this with your friends, especially if they are thinking about designing a game themselves. And if you want to support all we do here, super thanks, Patreon, and channel memberships are all available. Members get this video and all other videos except Intelligence is a Dump Stat early, and my patrons already have the entire list of bonus tips for effective TTRPG design. So, let's answer that burning question and its obvious follow-up. What do SOA, Lion King, The Northman, and Great Expectations have in common? And what does the answer to that question have to do with effective game design? What they have in common is that all 4 are essentially reskins of, or at the very least, heavily adapted from, the William Shakespeare epic tragedy Hamlet. The Lion King and the Northman are functionally the exact same plot with the exact same characters, just one is animals in the African savannah and one is Vikings. Great Expectations borrowed heavily from Hamlet, playing out the same themes of revenge and injustice, but with Victorian trappings. And Sons of Anarchy puts Prince Hamlet in white Nikes and has him carrying the legacy of his father and the man who betrayed him in the saddlebags of a Harley-Davidson Dynaglide. What the answer has to do with game design is that one must understand that there's nothing new under the sun. If your fantastic, amazing, unique idea hasn't ever been tried before, it's likely because it has and it failed miserably and you just don't know about it. It is in new adaptations, new concepts, taken from other sources that we find the magic sauce that leads people to consider your game over the games of others. Another way to look at it, since I seem to be drawing off of the theater for inspiration here, is the advice of the strippers from the 1959 Broadway musical Gypsy. The young Gypsy Rose Lee, faced with doing burlesque as a last-ditch effort to go out a star, is educated by 3 veteran exotic dancers on how to succeed. They comically inform her with a song that if all she does is dance and show skin, she will be just like every other stripper out there and no one will remember her and she will not be a star. To be a success and to be remembered, she has to have a gimmick. Even if musicals aren't your thing, you should check it out. It's pretty comical. It is pretty funny to watch a stripper who's dressed up like a Spartan hoplite play reveille on a bugle while walking around thrusting her hips to the beat and pronouncing that she does the same as every other girl, but she does it different because she does it with a horn. The point is that to be effective in the world of TTRPG design, you must have something that sets your game apart. And I hate to tell you this, but it's the same but better won't cut it. People by and large don't buy games for mechanics. They buy games for settings. They don't run out to buy that new coin-flipping tarot card game. They run out to buy the new space adventure game or that awesome fantasy world that's very familiar but somehow different. And this is where being well-read comes into play. The operative word is well. As Alexander McCree says, the designer of Adventurer, Conqueror, King, read broadly to be polymathic, but read deeply in the subject matter of your game. It is not enough to simply understand your genre. If your game revolves around advanced technology, you need to understand technology and how it affects society. Knowing how technology influenced the events of world history will inform you on how they should influence the setting your game is in. Being well versed in other genres of fiction will help you understand new ways to use that technology to build a world your players can sink their teeth into and really feel alive. Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia, Beowulf, Conan the Barbarian, they have all been reskinned and retold 1,000 times in the fantasy genre. Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, Star everything else have all been done and redone in sci-fi ad nauseum. Where your setting and thus your game can set itself apart is by bringing in elements that the player base doesn't expect or may not even be familiar with at all. And this even crosses over into the mechanics of your game. Remember, mechanics are downstream from setting. Setting influences everything. If you take the torch timer mechanics from Shadowdark, these are not informed by fantasy tropes or by common elements that players generally see in TTRPGs. It's driven by something very basic and very primal. The natural human fear of the dark and fear of unknown. The anxiety that comes from slowly losing your ability to know what's out there and how far it is and watching your world shrink. These are things that come from other things than common fantasy tropes. Everyone will tell you, and rightfully so, that if you are writing, say, a sci-fi game and you don't consume sci-fi media, you're dead on arrival. But what most of them fail to understand and fail to pass along is that without a well-rounded approach that includes both fiction and non-fiction outside of sci-fi, then you're at best going to be one of a million other copies of copies. By reading history, you can create a fantastic space rebellion story that liberally borrows from the American Civil War with a little warring states Sengoku-era Japan sprinkled in. More importantly, you can look at the political climate of your setting, recognize its parallels with Chinese dynastic history or late-stage Roman imperial history, and you know exactly how to flesh out what is happening in that setting to give players a believable world to exist in. In your fantasy world, bizarre alien races and lost technologies from sci-fi become the unique magical beings that are the source of your game's conflict and the inspiration for their novel and creative abilities that factor back into your mechanics. If you want a brutally direct example of this in the form of an undeniably successful game, look no further than Shadowrun. Yes, Shadowrun, the game that a lot of us kind of derisively know for needing 5,000 D6 to play effectively. The game setting blends fantasy and sci-fi together in a cyberpunk world that is further enhanced with a healthy dose of noir fiction. And unsurprisingly, both Robert Charette and Paul Hume are deeply involved in these other genres, with Charette having published works in science fiction and fantasy and being involved in various historical educational ventures himself. He developed the game Bushido, which is deeply interested, which is basically feudal Japan, and his deep interest in feudal Japan is on display. So is it any wonder that the mega corporations that are in Shadowrun operate like rogue daimyo during the Warring States period? These interests outside of cyberpunk are baked into Shadowrun in a way that is far deeper than a simple slap coat of paint over the tropes of the parent genre would provide. As a result, Shadowrun's 37 years old and it's in its 6th edition, where many other sci-fantasy punk-style offerings never managed to get off the launch pad. Well-read designers who understand their genre deeply and intimately, but also have diverse interests, have the ability to craft these worlds and make them feel real, organic, and logically consistent, while It's a Cyborg Elf with a Samurai Sword, the game, just falls flat on its face time and time again when it's pretty easy to see the man behind the curtain. I guess there is actually a secondary benefit to avoiding to this, and that would be avoiding the embarrassment of proudly proclaiming the unique genius of your never-before-seen innovative game setting, only to have someone come back and go, so it's just War of the Roses with magic and dragons. All this for the first key to being an effective game designer. You must be well-read, both in terms of your chosen genre and in a broad, general sense. Without this, the best you can ever hope for is to be another copy of a better, more successful designer. That's what I have on this one, guys. And next out, we're going to talk about key 2. Know your niche. We've already touched on it a little here. And we're going to go in depth on that and why it's important. For each of these keys, I plan to have someone who either is a successful designer or who has experience in that arena on to discuss the topic on my Driving the Conversation live stream. So be there on the second and fourth Thursday of each month at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope this series helps you in some way, even if it's just helping you recognize what makes a good game good. And I'll see you guys next time.